everybody. Welcome to episode number 356 of the podcast. I am coming to you from this beautiful home in Miami where I have been fortunate enough to be able to store myself and my belongings. If you are watching on YouTube, you could see in the background just boxes and stuff because that's what's going on right now. I moved here, but I didn't have a place to live yet. Currently, for the nosy people, waiting on condo association at a really gorgeous place I did find that I'm super excited about, but that's going to take another couple more weeks. So here we are. It's been a really rough go, and I'll share some of that in a little while. So, as well, I'm coming at you unshowered, dirty haired, makeup free, because I got to tell you all, with the amount of things that are going on in my own life and in the world, I just don't give a shit about being presentable. I just don't. Some of you aren't even seeing this. You're listening to it, and it just really doesn't matter. And I share that with you to just give others permission to just come as you are, be as you are. What you got is what you got any given day. It's just, especially for women, so attached to our appearance, what people might think. I mean, it's a waste of time. It's a freaking waste of time. And listen, you don't have to agree with me. That's pretty much the premise for this podcast. I got shit to say. I want to hear what other people have to say. You don't have to agree with us. And if anything we say is useful, great. We're so happy. I speak on behalf of myself and my guests. By the way, today, at the time that I'm recording this, I just sent out about 30 invites to podcast guests for the fall. I am very excited about that. You know, we get pitched for the podcast every single week of my life, and we say no to like 99% of pitches. But this is one of the things I love about social media and the internet. There's always people popping up on my radar who are doing cool things, innovative things, creative things, healing things that I really want to talk to. Some of those people are going to be repeat guests, some of your faves coming back. I'm just so interested. I took a long break from interviewing. So after a year and a half in the pandemic, I'm just so curious to tap back in with some of our former guests, see what's going on with them, see how they're feeling, what's going on, if anything, or how anything has shifted for them. Because I know so much has shifted for me. I'm sure so much has shifted for you. So it's just cool. Tap back in, see who we're becoming, how all of this is evolving us. So today I want to talk about the benefits of humility, patience, and other unsexy ways of being. That's what I'm calling it anyway, because I'll tell you in my own personal life and in my own practice, humility and patience don't feel sexy to me at all, but they feel really necessary and really important. And they certainly are, like, I find, fast tracks to the sexier and the finer things in life. They're just hard. And something I've been thinking about a lot lately is how, I say this, I'm not the only one who says this, but I really wholeheartedly believe that our individual work, the work that we do on ourselves, absolutely has a ripple effect. It affects the collective because we're all connected. It's all connected. That's energetically, that's spiritually, in so many ways. If we believe that, though, we also have to recognize how what's going on in the collective affects us as individuals, both in direct and obvious ways, but also in subtle, more energetic ways as well. And so almost everyone I know right now, and that isn't just like my personal circle of friends, peers, and colleagues. This is also in my groups. This is also, from what I see other people sharing on social media and in places like that, which again is only a limited, section or subset of humanity. So as always, I'm never, what's the word I'm looking for? I never am having the audacity. I'm not audacious enough to assume that anything I say is relevant for everybody. That's ridiculous. But so I'm just seeing a lot of it, though, is all I'm saying, are really in this liminal place. So many things moving, shifting, reconfiguring, recalibrating, but nothing quite landing. Or some things are landing, but like not quite fully. Maybe you can relate. And my move is a great example, right? I've landed in Miami, but I'm not in my own place yet. I'm not moved in. I'm not settled. I'm not sorted. So it's like I'm here, but I'm not here, if that makes sense. So a lot of us are in limbo right now in one way or another. And whether that's in our personal lives or it's just waiting for this friggin' pandemic to be over, which due to so many complexities is truly not going to be happening anytime soon. I think we could be real about that. And I think it's been shocking and traumatizing, especially for people who were really, really hoping that the vaccine would be the ticket out of this hell, right? And apparently that's not it either. And while vaccines are a great option for a lot of people, and there appear to be many, many benefits to it, other people don't feel that way. Some people for reasons that some would classify as selfish, others for more personal reasons that a lot of people, especially people out here trying to blame unvaccinated people for everything. Some people would call some of these reasons legitimate, others not so. But what's becoming clear either way, no matter what camp you're sitting in, is not nearly enough people are going to get vaccinated to have the desired or the hoped for outcome. So, what do we do now? That's always the thing that I'm looking at. So, what do we do? It's a very embodied approach because it's going, okay, because it's also a very present approach going, okay, we could be really pissed off about what has happened. That's in the past. We can really stress out about what's going to happen and all these things that we can't control in the future. Or we could be right here looking at what's going on and asking, what's my part? What can I do? How can I help? What kind of influence? What can we control? What are the things we can control? What are the things within my control? What are the things that make sense to put my energy towards that are not going to be to my own detriment or to the detriment of others? And again, because people are all so complex and we're all coming from such different places, having like clear, defined answers to those things is really, really hard. So a lot of people are freaking out. A lot of people are getting caught up in false dichotomies and equivalencies. And by the way, I want to talk about that because this is, you all know, especially if you've been listening to the show for a while, nuance and complexity is my jam. It's so important. I believe it's so crucial to like deep connection, deep healing, transformation, growth and evolution, um, comprehension, understanding, all of these things. So let's look at what those things actually mean. So let's start with false dichotomy. So a false dilemma or a false dichotomy is an informal fallacy based on a premise that erroneously limits what options are available. So, in other terms, it's an example of a logical fallacy, which is a failure of reasoning. And you all know I talk about intuition a lot. I am never saying we don't need logic or reason. I'm just often saying we also need intuition and we need to be integrating the two, not just relying too heavily on one or the other. So a false dichotomy is basically a failure of reasoning. And an example, I just Googled this, like what's a false dichotomy? And the example they put here is you should go to that party with me. If you don't, you'll just sit bored at home, right? So the false dichotomy is if you don't go to the party, you're going to be sitting bored at home. And it's a dichotomy because it's splitting it into as if there's only two choices when really not going to the party can mean so many other things. Maybe you'll be sitting at home, but maybe you won't be bored. Maybe you'll be reading a book. Maybe you'll go to bed early. Maybe you'll have time to like do some self-care that you haven't been doing. There's many, many other options, right? But people place those false dichotomies. Um, there's also some great examples in our current climate, right? And let's use some political examples. Let's just go there, everyone. Feel free to get mad at me and send me angry messages if you want to. I probably won't respond. But so some very political examples. For example, if you're a Republican, you're a Trump supporter. That's a false dichotomy. Y'all, I don't know about you, but I have plenty of Republicans in my life who are not Trump supporters. I was talking to someone, a newer person in my life recently who leans a little bit more conservative. And I asked what he thought of Donald Trump. And he was like, Donald Trump is an unprofessional, what was the other word he used? Unprofessional. And he might have said immature or something douchebag. And I was like, yes, okay, thank God I can continue talking to you. Um, because I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. We don't need to get into that. We've heard enough about this dude. But the point I'm making is there are people who lean more Republican or conservative who are not Trump supporters. And there are people out there who think if you're a Republican, you're a Trump supporter. False dichotomy. Likewise, on the other side of things, a false dichotomy is if you're a liberal, you're a socialist. Also not true. As well, this, again, false dichotomy. If you're a liberal or you're a Democrat, you care more about people than Republicans or conservatives do. That's literally just not true. Everything is more complex than that. And losing the nuance during these times, allowing ourselves to be susceptible or hooking in or glomming onto these false dichotomies, um, is really dangerous because we also have to realize where they're coming from. So much of it is coming from traditional and social media, which also leads to the false equivalences or equivalencies. We see this a lot, especially in meme culture. A false equivalence is also a logical fallacy, but this is where an equivalence is drawn between two subjects based on flawed or false reasoning. So, for example, here's the example that came up when I Googled it. And I'll give you an example because I actually saw a meme recently that was shared by a celebrity. And I was like, man, this is problematic. And so many people in the comments were like, yeah, this is amazing. And I'm sure it got shared all over the place. And it just really was false. But here's the example that when I Googled it, saying that a knife and dynamite are both tools that could be used as weapons. So they're pretty much the same thing. And therefore, if we allow people to buy knives at the store, then we should also allow them to buy dynamite. That's a false equivalence. Okay. It's just not true. They're not the same thing. So, this meme that I saw recently on someone's Instagram said, I had to click on it. I thought I had it open. I didn't. It was about mask wearing, another really volatile topic, right? It said, if you're wearing a mask, why would you care if I'm not? Your mask works, right? And then here's the false equivalence. Underneath that, it says, if you're sober, why would you care if I'm driving drunk? Your seatbelts and airbags work, right? So there's a bajillion reasons why both of these things, first of all, are shitty, shitty arguments. But to make them equivalent is also false because it's just not the same thing. Driving drunk, getting into an accident, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, the potential outcomes of each. We can, if we zoom out on this, if we are just sitting in a moment of actually welcoming in some logic and some reasoning, we could look at those things and go, okay, I see the point that's trying to be made here, right? There might be commonalities, right? But a commonality is not an equivalence. It does not equal the same thing. The outcomes are not equal. But this is the type of stuff because people love having a hot take. We are in the culture where everyone loves to have the hot take. Everyone wants to make the viral meme. People love sharing what they appear to be the hot take. And often we are deciding who we like based on who's sharing the things that make us feel justified in our beliefs and our stances and our positions and whatever. But a lot of these takes are false. And this is how we're basing connection and who we follow and what we share and what we endorse and all kinds of things on. Um, and honestly, spreading stuff like that does more harm than good because it feeds into divisive narratives. And let me also spend a moment on what I mean by divisive narratives, because I know there are a lot of people out there who blame division for everything and cry unity. We need to be unified. And I want to be clear on my stance around that so you don't misinterpret me. Unity, like big, large scale unity where we all come together, that is not available right now. Like on a global scale, look around, y'all. That's not like aiming for that is pretty useless because it's certainly not happening anytime soon, right? So crying, we need to be more unified when there's not a clear pathway or even valid or reasonable pathway to that is a little bit of a waste of time. We're too different. We're too polarized right now. But what is available, right? Because this is how I always like to look at things. Okay, what's not available? What's not realistic? What's not probable or possible? And what is? And we might see things differently. You might think things are available, probable, or possible. That's fine. I'm just sharing wherever you stand on that. Unity within communities and movements, though, that is available. So if we're going to be this divided, what kind of unity is available, is accessible, can we find? Because even people who, for the most part, hold some common core beliefs are still being divided right now because so many things have become polarizing topics or politicized topics. And I mean, the vaccine is such a great example because whether you're conservative or whether you're a liberal, Democrat, whether you're just like apolitical, people feel different ways within those groups of people about the vaccine and getting vaccinated. So the pandemic in and of itself has absolutely exacerbated so much division. And where that's really dangerous and really harmful is separating people from their bases of foundational support. The pandemic has created a ton of isolation as it is, right? Cutting people out of our lives, dismissing people because they disagree with us on one or two things, disregarding whole ass human beings on account of certain differences. That's dangerous stuff. And I can't say I haven't done it, but one of the things that I've really been reassessing in my own life is where have I maybe been impatient? Where have I maybe done that from my ego? So, coming back to the theme of this podcast episode, humility and patience, how unsexy those things are, how vulnerable they are, how challenging they can be, what they require us to face within ourselves if we're to show up better as a human who's connected to all the other friggin' humans. So, here's what I want to say. We are all allowed to have our deal makers and deal breakers in relationships, no matter the type of relationship. But in between those things exists a lot of gray, a lot of negotiables. And to be in that space, in the space of gray area, in the space of compromise, in the space of, you know what I love? What just caught my eye out the window. There's all these lizards here in South Florida and Miami. There's little salamanders, there's bigger iguanas, there's just like all kinds of lizards. And I have this backyard, this temporary backyard at this house where I am. And I see lizards every single freaking day now. And every time I see the lizards, I'm just reminded of like what we can shed, right? There's all these different types of lizards. I don't know if any of them are chameleons, but chameleons have the ability to like blend into their surroundings. So I'm constantly reminded from seeing, and the one that caught my eye because it was actually a bigger one. It was probably a little iguana. But like lizards, they could blend in with their surroundings. They shed their skin, they could shed their tails. And I'm constantly wondering, what's worth shedding? What is worth shedding? And I love that popped up. That's a little like nice synchronistic, you can't make that shit up moment as I'm talking about how many more people it would just be so helpful. It would just be so much better for us as a whole, I believe, right? You don't have to agree with me. If more people would play in the gray, play in this negotiable area, this sacred, holy, grown up ground that requires emotional maturity and commitment to the actual progress of humanity, not just being right. Because listen, we all might have ideas on how things would get done or be better. But the fact of the matter is, so many of them are just theoretical. We need to get enough people on board with actions, activism, initiatives, things like this to get the progress to happen. So in some cases, it's like, do you want the outcome or do you want to be right about how to get there? And if we have humility and we have patience, a lot of us are going to find that our way might not end up being the best way for the collective, right? For, again, so many reasons. There are so many friggin' complexities. So there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of negotiables. Allowing yourself to not be in the false dichotomies, the false equivalencies, the black or white thinking, and to be in the gray, to be willing, to be humble enough, to be patient enough to listen, to be willing to hear people who you might not agree with on everything, who you might have judged for whatever reason. um, shows, again, a commitment to actual progress and evolution and emotional maturity and attachment to the greater good, not just being right, right? Not just for it if it moves at the pace you want it to or takes the route that you deem best. That space requires humility and patience. And so that's just something for me. I'm in my birthday portal right now. So I've just been in my own exploration of where do I need to let go? What judgment do I need to let go of? What need to be right do I need to let go of? Where do I need to open my heart to someone that might have something valid or valuable or useful to say? I've been getting some practice with this man that's been in my life that I've been getting to know. I've been calling this experience a smoldering, slow simmer. Um, Over the last several months. And I mean, I could see the potential trajectory with this man, but I can't predict anything because, I just don't know yet. But we have a lot of different views on a lot of things. But what's so amazing and what's deepening our connection is how we come to these conversations and he listens to me and I listen to him. And sometimes it's like, I vehemently disagree with that, not even interested in exploring it. Sometimes it's, ooh, let me do a little research on that, or I need to think about that, or I need to integrate or let that process. But at the end of these conversations, it's just like a great conversation. I'm not mad. He's not mad. No one's blocking anybody. We're just able to be in our differences and listen and hear and learn from each other. This is something I appreciate about my family too. Most of my family is Republicans. And which, by the way, people assume I identify as like liberal or Democrat or whatever, while my perspectives are much more progressive and probably liberal leaning. I've never officially affiliated myself with a political party for a lot of for energetic reasons. Really, it's a big thing to claim your stake somewhere, especially when you're super not into so many things about the party or how they do things. And so, that's a choice I make. I stay independent, but it's a beautiful thing. It's a really nourishing thing, I find, to be able to listen and explore and consider. Because here's the thing, like, we're never, again, coming back to that unity thing I mentioned earlier, we're never all going to agree on everything. There's never going to be like one path. So we have to be able to listen to each other. We have to be able to come together enough in enough ways, cooperate enough, find compromise enough, truly for some greater good to even be possible, right? Because there's so much that's happened in this pandemic where we're like, is any of this even good for anybody? We're just some people. How can we find the most good for the most people? That's something I'm really curious about and always exploring. And that's largely what this episode is about today, because it's our smaller selves, it's our egos, and it's our fears that get in the way, that demand immediacy when it's not available, that bulldoze through nuance and complexity and wipe out any chance at compromise or innovation in some areas where we really desperately need it right now. And part of this crisis that we're in as a global human race is a crisis of addiction to instant gratification. People want their lives back, they want it now, and it makes sense. It's just not how things are going to go right now, right? So, this is one thing that I appreciate so much about spiritual practice, meditation, trust, surrender, faith, is being able, when I feel that way, to have a place to put it, have a place to offer it, to have a place to give it. This is less control, more magic, which I've been talking about for 7 years now. So, part of the discussion around patience and humility is having enough of both to zoom out when things are supercharged, when the narratives are passionate and so many believe they're right, or at least want to believe they're right because they need to believe there is a right. When sometimes there's too many factors for that to be true, sometimes we need to just admit we don't know what we don't know, and we're still learning so much. And what makes it complex is for some people, and I can really relate to this, isolating to stay safe is or has taken a really big toll on mental and emotional health. So that need for immediacy, I mean, it feels urgent. It feels urgent for a lot of people in big, big ways. But do you know how many of the world's problems would be more solvable and approachable if people were okay admitting when they don't know something? And this goes for small things in our own lives, all the way up to big things that we all have to interface with. It also includes our own narratives outside of pandemic related things. I've been using a lot of pandemic and political examples in this episode because these are things that are really present for just about all of us. What we believe about ourselves and life and people, what we tell ourselves that keeps us from getting what we need to move through life, especially in hard times, these are big questions. A big question I've been asking myself is, what choices have I made over the last several years in my life as I've become more politically active and socially aware and trauma informed? What choices have I made over the last several years in my life and my work to benefit others and be a good citizen, right? I don't like to label myself an ally or anything like that. That feels gross to me, but you all get it. So, what choices have I made that have actually harmed me more than they've helped whoever I was hoping to help? And I'm coming up with some answers that are making me really have to do some deep forgiveness work of myself, of others, of teachers, of all kinds of things. So it's a big question. I'm going to let that question sit now while I shift to a different story to bring in these themes of patience and humility. So, again, if you follow on social media, you probably already saw this or you might already know this, but I don't assume that everybody sees everything I post or follows or whatever. So, I'm going to read to you from a post from Instagram the first week of August. I moved into my office yesterday afternoon. And just for context, I rented an office, a private office in a co working space. I thought this was going to be a good idea. So here's the post. I moved into my office yesterday afternoon. And by the end of the day, I canceled my contract. Thank God I had chosen the month to month option. I really almost had a panic attack sitting in that fluorescently lit box with no windows. Even after I grabbed a few of my things to bring some life and color and wild soul vibes, my chest was still clenched up and I couldn't take a deep breath. I realized I was trying to make something work that does not and will not work for me. And that's a pattern I've been committed to breaking. I thought for a moment, I just need some plants in here. Then I started Googling fluorescent light covers, which, by the way, there's some really cool stuff out there. I even pulled people in my stories about painting it or getting some decal wallpaper. I was doing the motherfucking most to try to make this space work. But I quickly realized I was heading down that familiar path of trying to make something work that doesn't, denying my deepest, most untamed self. Environment really matters for my well being. It just does. And beauty and sensuousness are like oxygen for me. And these are just the facts. Getting this office and a co working space was largely motivated by not wanting to be so isolated working from home anymore. That's still something I need to address, but this office is not the solution. I'm so proud of myself for not wasting all kinds of money trying to make something bearable. There's so much we have to bear because of what's going on in the world right now. I'm certainly not opting for more bearability in the places where I have a choice. And I hope you won't either. So that was that message. And then inside the Institute for Embodied Living, which is where my Embodied Living Center membership lives, where my mini courses, the Wild Soul Archetypes and the Self Love mini course live, and my teacher training lives. There's just deeper, more intimate things that I post in there that I don't post on social media, but I'm going to share one of those with you because it's related and it was just a deeper elaboration on that post from Instagram. And I said, my bumpy landing in Miami continues. I moved into my office space yesterday. I was so hyped for this to be in a co working space, to not be isolated at home, to be around people, to give my work a space to fully take up and not have it mixed in with where I live. But the moment I got into the fluorescently lit box that is my little office, I started freaking out. Like for real, anxiety bordering on panic. At first, I was making light of it, but then I realized, no, this is my body letting me know this ain't it. I posted on Instagram about it in a little more detail if you want to see pics and stuff. And I want to share what I want to share here is how my landing here has been bumpy as fuck. So many of the things I moved here for just aren't going to be the way I know they can be yet. And that's okay. It feels good to observe it all and realize that nothing is wrong with me. I didn't manifest this. Sometimes circumstances are just circumstances, and what is for me is choosing how to respond to them. I can beat myself up and blame myself for not being the magical bitch who's above real life things happening to that I sometimes think I am. In parentheses, I put, hey, ego, hey. Or I can lean into the great mystery and trust that if this is how it's going down, something even more magical than what I had in mind is waiting for me. It's just a bit farther down the road. And how I approach the journey to get there is going to grow me, heal me, reveal things to me, and set me up for what truly is best. In this bumpy transition where so much of the timing is really quite off, I've been thinking about how much of our human suffering comes from how attached we are to instant gratification, to getting our way and getting it now, getting what we want when we want it. I'm actually finding well springs of peace in my heart by allowing myself to want this to go however life wants it to go. I'm staying curious and I'm cracking up daily because some of this shit is just ridiculous, but I can feel how it's good for me, how it's inviting me to release attachments that don't serve me, ideas that aren't aligned, and so much more. And of course, this is real birthday portal shit too, right on freaking time, showing me what I don't want to drag into another year of my life. I have a feeling some of you will be able to relate to aspects of this in your own ways right now. Would love to hear if you want to share anything too. So I posted that in that group and I got so many comments and responses on both of those posts, the public Instagram one and the private one in the Institute. A lot of big thank yous from people who were realizing how they also try to make things work and how they've beaten themselves up or internalized when things don't go their way because they believe they should have manifested better or some other thing that wasn't relevant given the circumstances. And so this is really the practice, as I mentioned earlier, of less control, more magic, which, by the way, in case you didn't know, I have workshops on both of those things. We do workshops almost monthly. You can go to untameyourself.com/workshops to see the past workshops, upcoming workshops. Um, they're like 3-hour deep dives into these little things that come up. Well, not little things, that if it requires a deep dive, it's not a little thing, but more intricate things, right? These themes that pop up in podcasts and Instagram posts and stuff like that. And they're just workshops, for people who don't want to take a whole course or who don't want to join the membership. You could just pop in for a workshop. And so, less control, more magic has been our most popular mantra since 2014 when I first created Wild Soul Movement. And I know a lot of people meme it, a lot of people share it without giving credit. So, trust if you see less control, more magic anywhere on the internet, that is an original Wild Soul Movement mantra. But here's what it's about. It's about surrender and trust. It's about releasing attachment to outcomes. And as this episode has been themed around, all of these things require humility and patience because life is so complex and everything is interconnected. We don't live in vacuums or bubbles, even if we try to. And where we get to control all the factors in our manifestations, like we just don't get to. So I hope this helps. I hope this inspires you to go into your own heart, to find the patience and find the humility that you need to carry you through these ongoing, challenging times. We're in it right now, y'all. We'll get out of it eventually. But in the meantime, my goal for my own self and for anyone who engages or interacts with me in any way, online, through this podcast, on the internet, through my work, on Instagram, wherever the hell, is can we live with as much love and faith and connection, decency and grace, positive regard for each other as possible? I saw a meme recently. I don't remember whose account I saw it on, but it said something along the lines of how we remind people of their sacredness, how we bring more soul into a world that so often feels soulless, is we continue to treat people as if they are sacred. So eventually they will remember the sacredness inside of them. I know this is so hard. I know there's a lot of people out there behaving in non sacred ways, but it is so healing. It is so, what's the word I want to use here? I'll just stick with healing. The practice of treating and regarding everyone as sacred, no matter what. Again, much easier said than done. Do I do this all the time? Absolutely not. You should see the way I talked to the moving company after how they treated me. There was no sacredness in that exchange. Okay. So I'm not saying anyone needs to do this 24/7 or that it's even possible or that I do. We're not pretending. We're not fronting out here like that. Right. But can we try? How much can we treat ourselves with sacredness? Can we treat others so that we can all continue to remember, like, this is a sacred gig, like being alive, getting to be in a body, getting to be on earth, even when things are going the way they're going right now, even when we're seeing like the worst of humanity, the shit is still sacred. It's still miraculous. It's still amazing. And there's still so much good and so much potential and possibility. And there's better ways to act, y'all. So I hope any of this was helpful. I hope maybe you are inspired to find the humility and patience that you really have access to, that maybe you haven't been so good about engaging with and enacting in your life that could make a difference for you and for the people around you. So let me know what you think. This is episode number 356. You can find the show notes at untameyourself.com/356. Um, if you enjoyed or appreciated the episode, share it with your friends, share it with your family, post it in your Instagram stories, social media, wherever the hell else you share things. You know how it goes. And that's it. We'll be back again soon, and I'll see you later.